Hey everybody. So yesterday, a bunch of us went down to the Montreal Motorcycle Show. Turn that back on, gives me some extra light. Montreal Motorcycle Show. And I'd never been to the Montreal Motorcycle Show before. And just a month ago, we were at the Ottawa show. So I really, that was my, level of what a motorcycle show was the Ottawa one. So walking into the Montreal one, bigger, definitely bigger. I would say easily 2 to 3 times the size. A few things that I found that the Montreal show did well is the fact that it's downtown, is that you get to park underneath the actual building that the show is in. So for those of us that want to leave our coats or our gear or whatever we want, we have with us in the car, not a worry. We can still walk with our t-shirts on, and even though it was fairly chilly, about -10 yesterday, into the show. When we got there, I wish I had some video or something. The lineups were huge lineups to get into this thing. So we were prepared when we got in that it was going to be very busy. Now, one of the nice things though about this show, in comparison to the Ottawa show, was the actual bike manufacturers that were there. So the Ottawa show had your standards, Harley Davidson, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda, Triumph. But what they didn't have was some of the other brands. So coming to Montreal and being able to see Indian, for instance, was really nice. It was nice to see some of the new Indian bikes, the beautiful bikes. It was nice to see some of the Ducatis that were there. And one of the smaller manufacturers, but always has been a brand that I've been somewhat curious because I've never seen one. You see Ducatis on the street, even though you can't see that. You see Indians on the street. Was Royal Enfield. And Royal Enfield, even though it had a small booth, had 4 of their bikes there. And you had the opportunity to sit on them. And just as a personal note, not very wide, which you would guess for a cafe racer style bike, but surprisingly tall. I'm 6'1", and when sitting on these bikes, it was I was on my toes. So actually quite surprising how tall these bikes are. Definitely wouldn't be a bike for me that I would buy as an only bike, but I'd be curious to have it as a second bike. Very, very neat little bike indeed. One of the things that the Montreal Bike Show did was put all the major just vendors, so the bike brands and anybody that wasn't really selling anything, together. So 80-90% of the show was this. That other 10 to 20% was pushed off in the back corner, and those were actually companies that were selling and solely selling. So you were looking at guys that were selling chaps and all kinds of leather gear and some kind of little bike accessories and rain gear and etc. A very small little section, but they grouped it all together. So those that wanted to do some shopping, that's where they went. I wish though, because they did this and they grouped everything together like this, that they gave that area a bit more space. It would have been nice to have that space, 50% bigger, if not maybe even a little bit bigger. I talked to a few of the vendors and they had actually said that the Friday, so the day previous, that it was even busier than it was today, and it was busy there. So, for those of us that are shopping or wanting to try on stuff, even for me, I don't want to sit and be bumped into and banged while I'm trying to try in a pair of boots, or you're trying to put a pair of chaps on, or whatever it is. So that would be something that, 2 ways. For the show, you might want to consider maybe making it a little bit more space. They had a huge food court kind of area. Chew in a bit of that. If there wasn't very many people in there eating, especially with my opinion, the price of the food and drink was ridiculously expensive. The other thing is, yes, sales were there, but all the motorcycle vendors themselves, so the guys selling the bikes, and Americade was there and stuff like that. A lot of these companies had, yes, they have all their bikes, but they had a lot of their merchandise. So they had, sweatshirts and t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. So little trinkets that most of us would be cool, especially that were coming in to see these guys, would be like, hey, I'd like to buy a sweatshirt. Not sure why you have sweatshirts there or t-shirts there if you can't buy them. So None of them were selling them, which is a bit of a disappointment. I know a lot of the people that I ended up meeting at the show were there to pick up little items from brands that they ride. You know, a few of the guys ride Yamaha, wanted to buy, a Star t-shirt, which they had, but they were demo shirts. Not too sure why you need a demo t-shirt at a bike show. Yeah, a demo bike I get, but not a demo t-shirt. So they missed out on, all these companies missed out on, I think, on a big opportunity to capitalize on some sales. Yes, they're not, people aren't buying $10,000 bikes, but all you need to do is bring in one person that's there to have a cash register that will sell some t-shirts, or just man it, a little information booth. I can't see it being that difficult. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. I know for a lot of the guys, I wasn't there to buy a t-shirt, but I did buy a couple of little trinkets at the other area. For me though, out of all the different bikes, I think the adventure bikes are cool. Sport bikes, cool for those that ride them. Definitely not a bike for me. I'm there for the cruisers, and I'm there really right now for the cruiser bikes that I know that I'll be interested in purchasing, within the next year or so. So I spent a lot of time focusing really in the Kawasaki and Yamaha booth. Yes, I would have loved to have spent just as much time in the Harley booth, and I did spend a lot of time there, but I know that that's not a bike that I will end up getting, because I can get a much more current, as well as a bigger metric style bike versus a Harley Davidson for a similar price, since I'll be buying used. But it's still nice to see what the new bikes are and get a feel for them. So, my CC class that I'm looking at will be somewhere between a 900 and say a 1500. And at the Ottawa show, I had said on the Vulcan 900 and the V-Star 950, and really liked the feel of both of those. But as the last month has gone by, I've been kind of concerned about, would that be still, just a small step up compared to what I'm riding, and should I jump bigger? So I really wanted to focus on the difference between the 900s and the 13 and the 1500s. Because of that, those were the two areas that I kind of focused with the most in this show, and really looked at that. Now, not to say that I didn't go to the Kawasaki booth and drool over the Nomad 1700 that was out there. If I could and I could buy a brand new bike, would I buy a $40,000 Harley if I had the money? Yeah, probably. For the value, the 1700 Vulcan Nomad is probably one of the bikes that's top of my list. And seeing it there at the show and sitting on it and getting the opportunity, it's a beautiful bike. Definitely would be very high on my list. Again, I haven't taken it up for any kind of road test or anything like that, but just on sitting on it and comfort and placement of the bars and the pegs and where the bags are, I definitely high on my list. Again, I spent time with the 900 at the Kawasaki booth, as well as I looked at the V-Star 950 again, but I spent a little bit more time looking at, say, the 1300 Star, just to see if it, how much bigger it was, and putting those two bikes really beside each other, say the Star 1300 versus the Star 950, I really found that even though it's, you have the two bikes beside each other, they're very close in size. I do have a feeling that I'm going to end up looking at the bigger bikes. I don't think for myself, being that I'm a bigger guy, like I said, 6'1", that I want to limit myself with, say, the 900. Beautiful bike though, and who knows, it still may be, if I get a really good deal on one, it may be a bike that I look at. But I am going to be looking at more of that 1300, and I did sit on the Star 1300, I believe it was. Really found it to be a comfortable bike. The biggest thing I found with the 950 versus the 13 was just the seat size. Being that it's a bigger saddle for a longer trip, or a trip that you're going to be on the bike for 5 to 8 hours, that kind of cushion can be worth its weight, right? So that was a real big thing for me. Of course, I spent and looked time at some of the Triumphs, and Triumph has some really nice bikes as well. But because a lot of those brands, you don't see them on the street as much, for me, again, being that I'll be buying used, these aren't bikes that depreciate probably quite as fast. So anyways, stepping back to the whole Montreal show, was it good? Was I glad that I went? Yeah, 100%. It was a great show. I'm not bilingual, and that had no effect on the show at all. Everybody that I spoke to was bilingual, so they could speak both English and French, which was great. Next year, will I go to it again? Maybe. Again, I'm not looking at buying an Enfield, or I'm not looking at buying a Ducati or Indian or anything like that. So unless they do something drastic with their bikes, probably not that big a reason. I will, though, probably attempt to go to the Toronto show, because I heard it's even bigger than both the Ottawa and Montreal shows, and that may be a cool one to see. Other than that, guys, it's still cold and snowy out here. I don't think winter's ever going away. I hope you guys have much nicer weather, and if you had snow, that it is slowly going. If you didn't have snow, enjoy the ride, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Oh yeah, so not next weekend, but March 10th through 17th, I've taken that week off, and all the gear that I have bought through the winter up to this point is here. So I will be attempting, hopefully if it's warm enough, to install all this stuff. So hopefully you guys check in, tune in, do whatever you do. Come see the website. I'll be doing a lot of written and photo blogs as well as video stuff like this. And that's it. Talk to you guys later.